through some of these before, and it never, you know, each and every time it gives us all just that pit in our stomach, knowing what could be happening within the walls of this school. 3,000 or so people, and you heard it from the Broward County Sheriff's Department saying that the shooter is still out there, has not been located.
Right. So, so the good news, I guess, if there is some, is that a high school this size would be viewed as critical infrastructure. They've done trainings. They've probably done lockdown trainings. And so you're going to have chaos, but in some ways also you're going to have at least adults as well as law enforcement personnel who know what to do to protect as many children as possible. And so this becomes, you know, sort of a sort of part of what Homeland Security tries to do with state, local, and of course with the FBI, federal law enforcement. Because the shooter has not been detained, and we're assuming it's one, that also is going to add a level of essentially identification needs in this process. In other words, who are you? Are you a student, and are you unarmed? That's going to slow up any evacuation process at this stage. It's just necessary to do. And then finally, Brooke, I mean, you said it yet again. I mean, you cannot have these conversations with at least saying every time, we are the only nation that has this kind of violence, and presumably, you know, gun violence, obviously, in particular, focused on our children. It is just ridiculous. My daughter is coming home from an urban high school in the next 20 minutes. It's like no other country lives or allows themselves to live. And here we are another time having a discussion about guns as being a security issue for our children.
I know. I was just talking to a 7-year-old on my show this week who lost her 6-year-old friend at a school shooting in South Carolina. She wrote a letter to the president, and I couldn't have put it better. You know, the 7-year-old said, "Mr. President, how are you going to keep children safe in this country?" But I want to stay on what we know. Again, if you are just joining us, these are the pictures of young people. I shouldn't say children. These are high school students, so in some cases running, some in more single-filed lines, you know, out of this high school. This is in Broward County. This is the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. And really the biggest piece of information we just got from Broward Sheriff is despite the fact that we heard of, you know, shots fired, this shooter is still at large. And it's a pretty big high school. As of 2014, the total student enrollment was right around 3,000 students. You know, Juliet made the great point that, you know, at least it looks like a large school. It's hopefully a school that has run through these active shooter drills. And if we still have them, can I go back over to James Galliano, guys? Do we still have James? All right, Josh Campbell, let me just go back over to you. Juliet made some great points, but back on the issue of, you know, the fact that we have, according to our affiliate down there, 20 wounded, at least 20 wounded, and that's what we can at least go with at the moment. What happens? What's the order of priority? I've seen a couple, you know, young people put on stretchers and obviously headed out to hospitals, but I've seen what looked like a makeshift tent for triage on scene.
Yeah, so what we've seen based on past incidents is that in a situation like this, the word is going to go out to trauma centers in the area, to hospitals, giving them a warning, a flash that, you know, we have an incident that's ongoing, be prepared for a number of casualties to come in. So as we watch the incident unfold right now, simultaneous to that, the hospitals will be preparing for victims. As you mentioned, you know, we've learned lessons in the past on whether you wait to transport someone or you treat them on scene, the latter being the preferred action, especially in, you know, a situation where you can literally save a life depending on how far the scene of the shooting is from a hospital. So first responders will be triaging, even as law enforcement is attempting to identify, locate the shooter. You'll see first responders on the outskirts there on the perimeter setting up these triage locations to look at the wounded, to determine, you know, what state they are in, and then if needed, treat them on the scene or quickly move them to a trauma center.
Josh, thank you. I've just gotten, let me just read this. This is from the governor of Florida, Rick Scott, tweeting a couple minutes ago. I've spoken with Broward Sheriff and Broward School Superintendent and FDLE Commissioner regarding Stoneman Douglas High School. We will continue to receive updates from law enforcement. So that's what we have there. We also know that President Trump has been briefed on this Florida school shooting that is coming out of the White House. So, Juliet, to you on your point, and I'm sure you are right on that these young people have gone through active shooter training drills. What are they told to do? I mean, again, there are many classrooms. The fact that the shooter is still large. Those who are still in this school, what are they taught to do?
So it's going to depend on the school and where you are. So the general order is run if you can, hide if you must, and only engage the shooter if that's sort of a last resort. So what we've learned from Israel, what we actually learned from Columbine, which is a sort of historical moment in terms of school shootings, obviously, but also what we train people is staying put can often be very dangerous, especially since we don't know who has the gun and where they are. And so it just is going to depend on what the school determined where kids should go to protect them. So it's generally going to be either run if you can or hide, lock down if you must. Teachers obviously are also trained in this. And I will say, at this stage, I would be shocked if the sheriff didn't already have a lay of the architecture and the geography of the high school and where everyone could go. The reason for that is, remember, Columbine becomes this moment for all of us who've learned from it. The law enforcement people did not have a map. So they probably have a pretty good sense of what rooms are where kids might be, and to evacuate them, get them out. And then, as we were saying, then the triage of the wounded happens, and it happens quickly, so that you're surging resources, and at the same time, you're trying to get the kids out of the way.
Juliet, what is security like in high schools right now? I know it's changed so much over the years, and we all keep mentioning Columbine.
Right. So it's going to depend, obviously, on the school and where it is and its threat level. So it's going to depend on neighborhoods and how many people are coming in and out. Most high schools at this stage are under state regulations that they would have locked doors, so that once the kids are in and out in the morning or in the afternoon, that actually it's hard to enter schools. A lot of them will have their own, or not their own, but public law enforcement officials on site or close to site, depending on the size of the high school. And so we just don't know at this stage what was the security apparatus beforehand. But as we also know, it's not that hard, we don't know what kind of gun it is. So it's not that hard to get a gun in if it's a handgun or any other type of gun. So right now, it's just get these kids out of there. I mean, I know this is ongoing, but that's the goal of law enforcement right there, that if they can safely exit the school and get into evacuation zones, that is what matters. And then remember, Brooke, parents are rushing to that high school right now. So you're going to have the parents rushing in, the kids rushing out. So a key focus now is also family unification. We learned that.
Okay. All right. You have been watching our sister network there to give you a quick recap of the breaking news that we are following. Local media says at least 20 people are wounded in the U.S. state of Florida in a shooting at a high school. Authorities say the shooter is still at large. Aerial footage from the scene shows students fleeing and a number of people being treated for injuries outside the school. The FBI is responding to the incident and, of course, working with local authorities. This is a fast-moving story, and certainly we will continue to bring you details as soon as we get them. But now we want to move on for a moment. Machine guns, sniper rifles, grenade launchers. Take one look at the weapons available to buy online in northern Syria, and you will find a terrifying array of hardware. But among the massive selection of deadly weapons, CNN spotted one that stuck out. An assault rifle made in, you guessed it, the United States. Here's Nick Payton-Walsh with an exclusive report.
After 6 years of war in Syria, it's awash with weapons, yet no more so alarming than here on jihadi messaging forums in al-Qaeda-dominated areas of the north. Scan the hundreds of guns for sale on the app Telegram, and you can see just how distant peaceful normality is. Grenade launchers, sniper rifles, heavy machine guns, shoulder-launched missiles, thermal sniper scopes. But one offer stands out, an M16A4. All the way from South Carolina company FN MFG. But somehow its seller says he's in the Syrian city of Idlib, where al-Qaeda-linked jihadists dominate. He offers to meet and that makes an extraordinary claim about where he got it from. Division 30, he says. They were a US-funded and trained elite group of Syrian rebels deployed in 2015. The unit was swiftly derailed by jihadists, some linked to al-Qaeda, and eventually collapsed. The top-end US taxpayer-funded weapons they had vanished into the void of the Syrian civil war. The weapon's serial number suggests it was supplied as part of a US program in the region.
What this does
This is a fast-moving story, but we will continue to update you as and when we get details. Explosive new details are emerging about American airstrikes in Syria last week. The strikes killed more than 100 fighters attacking a base held by U.S.-supported forces. But now we're learning that a number of Russian mercenaries are among the dead. Frederick Pleitgen reports from Moscow.
On the night of February 7th, the U.S. Air Force was called to repel an attack by pro-government militias against forces supported by the U.S. in eastern Syria. Around 100 of the attacking militiamen were killed.
We are focused on a singular enemy, ISIS. We're not looking for a fight with anyone else, but as Secretary Mattis said last week, if you threaten us, it will be your longest and worst day.
Okay, you're listening now to South African President Jacob Zuma.
I make reference to the much publicized and awaited decision of the African National Congress issued on the 13th February 2018. It is now public knowledge that the National Executive Committee of the ANC resolved to recall me as the President of the Republic. I have also learned that before I respond to the initial decision, a new decision has been made by the ANC, whose effect is that I have now been compelled to resign by way of a motion of no confidence set down for tomorrow, 15 February 2018. The ANC is indeed the party of whose nomination on whose nomination I became a candidate for the presidency of the Republic of South Africa after its victory of the national elections of 2014. It was on the ANC's nomination that I was later elected by the majority in the National Assembly as the President of the Republic. I am forever indebted to the ANC, the liberation movement I've served almost all my life.